The moment you stop responding is the moment everything changes, not because they suddenly lose interest, but because they lose control. And in that silence, you finally take your power back. There comes a defining moment in life when you discover that your greatest strength is not in what you say, but in what you refuse to give. For too long, your energy, your reactions, and your emotions have been the fuel that kept another person feeling powerful. Every explanation, every defense, every attempt to be understood only tightened their grip. You believe that if you spoke clearly enough, loved deeply enough, or proved your worth strongly enough, things would change. But the truth reveals itself in a quiet, undeniable way. Your silence is the turning point. When you choose silence, you are not surrendering. You are reclaiming authority over your own spirit. You are no longer participating in a cycle designed to exhaust you. This decision, though it may seem simple, carries immense power. It disrupts expectations. It removes the control they once held over your emotional state. Suddenly, the person who thrived on your responses is left without direction, without certainty, without influence. In that absence, they begin to feel something unfamiliar, the loss of control. Silence forces a shift in the balance of power. It sends a message louder than any argument ever could. It declares that your time, your peace, and your energy are no longer available for manipulation. This is not weakness. This is discipline. This is self-mastery in its highest form. The moment you stop reacting is the moment you stop feeding the illusion that they can dictate your worth. Within this choice lies a deeper transformation. You begin to see yourself differently. You no longer measure your value by how well you can fix or please someone else. Instead, you recognize that your worth is inherent, unshakable, and independent of anyone's approval. This realization builds a quiet confidence that cannot be easily disturbed. It strengthens your mind, sharpens your focus, and aligns your actions with your highest good. As you remain steady in your silence, you may feel discomfort at first. The urge to explain, to respond, to defend may rise within you. But understand this discipline over impulse is the foundation of personal power. Every moment you resist the need to react, you are training your mind to operate from strength rather than emotion. You are proving to yourself that you are in control of your life. Over time, this silence becomes more than a response. It becomes a strategy for growth. It creates space for clarity, for healing, and for purpose. You redirect your energy away from conflict and toward building a life that reflects your true desires. You begin to attract environments and relationships that honor your peace rather than challenge it. The person who once relied on your reactions may attempt to regain their influence. They may push boundaries, seek attention, or create confusion. But their efforts only confirm one thing: the power has shifted. They are no longer certain of their place in your life. They no longer have access to the part of you that gave them control. And in that realization, you stand stronger than before, guided not by the need to prove, but by the decision to protect your peace, knowing that the greatest victories are often achieved not through force, but through the quiet, unwavering strength of self-control. There is a moment in life when you realize that your reactions have been quietly shaping the behavior of others. Every time you answered with emotion, defended your position, or tried to prove your worth, you unknowingly reinforced a pattern that kept you entangled. It felt natural to respond, to explain, to stand your ground. Yet the deeper truth is this: your reactions were never just responses. They were the very fuel that sustained the dynamic. The instant you decide to withdraw that fuel, everything begins to change. When you stop reacting, you introduce a force that cannot be manipulated. You become unpredictable to those who once relied on your emotional responses. What once worked effortlessly for them suddenly fails. The words that once provoked you lose their effect. The tactics that once controlled you fall flat. And in that shift, something remarkable begins to unfold. They start to unravel. This unraveling is not caused by anything you say or do, but by what you refuse to give. You are no longer participating in a game that was designed to keep you off balance. You are no longer seeking validation from someone who thrived on withholding it. Your stillness becomes your strength. Your restraint becomes your strategy. And without your engagement, the illusion they depended on begins to collapse. Understand this clearly. Power is not always loud or visible. True power often operates in silence, in discipline, in the ability to remain unmoved when every part of you wants to respond. When you master this level of control, you step into a higher version of yourself. You are no longer reacting from impulse. You are acting from intention. At first, this shift may feel uncomfortable. You may question whether your silence will be misunderstood. You may feel the urge to correct false assumptions or defend your name. But each time you resist that urge, you strengthen your inner authority. You teach your mind that peace is more valuable than proving a point. You prove to yourself that your worth does not depend on being heard by someone unwilling to understand. As you remain steady, you will begin to notice the change not only in them, but within yourself. Your thoughts become clearer. Your emotions become more stable. Your energy, once scattered in conflict, is now directed toward growth and purpose. You begin to build a life that is not centered around reaction, but around creation. Meanwhile, the person who once depended on your reactions faces something unfamiliar, uncertainty. Without your responses, they lose their sense of control. They may attempt to provoke you, to pull you back into old patterns, to regain the influence they once had. But their efforts reveal a simple truth: they are no longer in command. This is where your strength must remain firm, not in resistance, but in consistency. Your silence is not a temporary tactic. It is a reflection of a deeper transformation. It is the evidence that you have chosen growth over chaos, clarity over confusion, and self-respect over approval. In this faith, you discover a powerful realization: you were never powerless. You were simply giving your power away through reaction. And now, by choosing not to engage, you have taken it back completely, standing in a position of calm control where your peace is protected, your focus is sharpened, and your future is shaped not by the actions of others, but by the quiet strength of your own disciplined mind. There comes a powerful awakening in life when you realize that not every battle is meant to be fought with words. For a long time, you may have believed that clarity, explanation, and emotional honesty would bring understanding. You gave your energy freely, thinking it would create harmony. Yet what you often received in return was confusion, distortion, and a subtle erosion of your peace. What you did not see at first was that your engagement was sustaining an illusion of control, of superiority, of influence that depended entirely on your participation. The moment you choose silence, that illusion begins to crack. Silence is not emptiness. It is a deliberate withdrawal of energy. It is the decision to no longer contribute to a system that feeds on your reactions. When you step back, you remove the very element that kept everything appearing stable. What once seemed powerful begins to weaken. What once appeared certain becomes unstable. Your silence introduces uncertainty where there was once control, and in that uncertainty, chaos begins to rise. This chaos is not yours to carry. It is the natural consequence of a structure losing its foundation. When someone has relied on your attention, your explanations, and your emotional responses to maintain their sense of dominance, your absence creates a void they cannot easily fill. They may attempt to provoke, to confuse, or to regain your attention through familiar patterns, but without your engagement, their efforts lose direction. The strategies that once worked begin to fail, and the illusion they carefully maintained starts to dissolve. Understand the deeper truth within this transformation. Your silence is an act of self-mastery. It is not about punishment or retaliation. It is about alignment. You are aligning your actions with your worth. You are choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and strength over reaction. This choice requires discipline because the urge to respond will not disappear immediately. It will call to you in moments of doubt, urging you to explain, to defend, to correct. But every time you remain still, you reinforce a new standard for your life. In that stillness, something extraordinary begins to grow within you. Your mind becomes clearer, no longer clouded by constant conflict. Your emotions become steadier, no longer pulled in every direction. You begin to see situations for what they truly are, rather than how they were presented to you. This clarity is power. It allows you to make decisions based on truth, not manipulation. As you continue on this path, you will notice that the chaos around you no longer has the same effect. It may still exist, but it no longer reaches you in the same way. You have created a boundary that is not built on words, but on action. You have demonstrated that your peace is not negotiable, and in doing so, you have shifted the entire dynamic without saying a single word. The person who once thrived on your engagement may struggle to understand this change. They may interpret your silence in many ways, but none of those interpretations matter. What matters is that you have stepped out of the illusion and into reality. You are no longer trying to fix what was never yours to fix. You are no longer seeking validation from a place that could not provide it. This is the true power of silence. It breaks illusions not by force, but by absence. It reveals what was hidden, exposes what was unstable, and frees you from cycles that once seemed inescapable. And as you stand in this newfound strength, you begin to build a life rooted in truth, guided by purpose, and protected by the quiet, unwavering discipline of a mind that knows its own value. There is a profound truth that reveals itself only when you begin to observe your own patterns with honesty. What you repeatedly give, you reinforce. For a long time, your attention, your emotional reactions, and your willingness to engage became a steady stream of energy that sustained a dynamic you did not fully understand. You believed you were maintaining connection, defending your worth, or preserving peace. Yet in reality, you were providing the very supply that allowed imbalance to continue. The moment you decide to withdraw that supply, everything begins to shift. When there is no response, there is no reinforcement. When there is no engagement, there is no control to be exercised over you. This absence is not passive. It is a conscious act of reclaiming ownership over your energy. It is the realization that your time, your focus, and your emotions are valuable resources that must be directed with intention. What follows this decision is often unexpected. The person who once seemed composed and certain begins to show signs of instability. Without your reactions to anchor their behavior, they are left navigating uncertainty. The patterns that once worked no longer produce results. The words that once provoked you now fall into silence. And in that silence, they are forced to confront a reality they cannot easily control. This is why your absence shakes them. It removes predictability. It dismantles the structure that allowed them to feel powerful. It reveals that their influence was never absolute. It was conditional, dependent on your participation. When that participation ends, so does their certainty. Yet the true transformation is not in their reaction. It is within you. By choosing not to respond, you are strengthening a discipline that extends far beyond any single situation. You are training your mind to act with purpose rather than impulse. You are learning that not every action deserves a reaction, and not every voice deserves your attention. This awareness elevates your thinking and refines your character. At first, this path may challenge you. The urge to respond can feel strong, especially when silence is misunderstood or when your intentions are questioned. But understand this clearly. Your growth is not dependent on being understood by everyone. It is dependent on your ability to remain aligned with your values, even when it is difficult. Each moment of restraint builds a stronger foundation within you. Your confidence becomes quieter, yet more powerful. Your presence becomes calmer, yet more commanding. You no longer feel the need to prove your worth because you have come to recognize it as something that cannot be taken or diminished by another person's perception. As you continue forward, you will notice a shift in the quality of your life. Your energy is no longer scattered in conflict. It is focused on creation, on growth, on building something meaningful. You begin to attract circumstances and people that resonate with your level of self-respect. This is not by chance. It is the natural result of the standards you have set through your actions. Meanwhile, the one who depended on your responses may attempt to regain access to the energy you once provided. They may test boundaries, seek reactions, or create situations designed to draw you back in. But their efforts only confirm the power of your decision. They reveal that what you withdrew was significant, that your presence held value, and that your absence has changed the balance entirely. And in this realization, you step into a new level of awareness. You understand that your greatest strength lies not in how you respond to everything, but in your ability to choose when not to respond at all, knowing that your silence is not emptiness, but a powerful declaration that your energy is no longer available for anything that does not honor your peace. There is a decisive moment in life when you recognize that power is not something given to you by others, but something you either surrender or protect through your own choices. For a long time, you may have believed that staying engaged, explaining yourself, or trying to be understood would bring balance to a difficult dynamic. Yet each attempt to fix, to clarify, or to win approval only deepened the hold that was placed upon you. What seemed like connection was, in truth, a quiet exchange where your energy was traded for their control. The shift begins the instant you choose silence, not as an act of withdrawal born from weakness, but as a deliberate decision rooted in self-mastery. In that moment, you interrupt a pattern that once operated with certainty. You step out of a cycle that depended on your reactions to survive. And without your engagement, the structure that held their influence together begins to weaken. Silence removes access. It denies the emotional responses that once gave them direction. It takes away the predictability they relied on to maintain their position. When you no longer react, you are no longer participating in the game. And when you are no longer participating, their ability to influence you diminishes with every passing moment. This is the true nature of the power shift. It is not about overpowering.